You're listening to WIDR Kalamazoo. And this is Wombat Music taking you through the rabbit hole with the Reverent Marigold.
Hello, radio audience.
Thank you so much for joining me in the studio this evening.
Oh, the pleasure is all on my end. I am delighted to be here. This is my very first radio interview, and I'm very excited to get to be here and listen to some tunes.
Yeah, it is so wonderful to have you here. I mean, last time I saw you, the first time I saw you play live was more than a year ago, and it was a magical experience. Like, I was living in a different house venue. It was called Doom City, and I was still sort of new to the music scene, and it was a Halloween show. I really didn't know who was playing. My roommate, who's very active in the music scene, Haley, who runs the Void. Shout out the Void.
Shouting into the void and shout out the void.
Must have recruited you somehow. But all I know is I walk out in the backyard, in the parking lot, and I see this beautiful soul playing banjo with. You had like a hip modulator?
I had my little Volca Keys synthesizer on my hip mount. She's suffering technical difficulties, so I haven't played with her in a hot second. But yeah, it's a tiny synthesizer that I keep on me to do synth backing to my banjo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that you just had a recent release. Or no, I'm thinking about the EP that came before your recent release, the one that has post Oppenheimer on it?
Yes, Sick Trans Glorious Moon Dream, my favorite title I've ever made for anything.
So when you perform those live, I know they have a lot of synths on it. Is that what you bring along with you to perform those songs?
Yes, that's what I bring along to perform those songs, specifically Ahab or The Whale, which is on that release, and then I also do it for my release Judas. So yeah, I have a couple different styles of sets that I like to play, and definitely that was in my more like crunchy synthesizer style sets when I'm feeling a little spicier, a little less moody. But yeah, no, that's mostly where that synthesizer comes in, is in those releases. Yeah.
So is this your solo project, or have you ever been in other bands with other musicians?
I am the Reverent Marigold. My name is Marigold, and so this is a solo project. I would love to bring other people in, but the Reverent Marigold is a project that I started back in 2019 when I wrote my first song, and then it started out very folksy, and then it has just evolved as my style has evolved over the years, and it really took off after I played my very first show ever. With a band in a punk house I was living in Portland, Oregon, where we played one show and then COVID hit. And so that was the beginning of my music career, was then writing a song. The first releases of the Reverend Marigold were the first 2 weeks of COVID. I wrote and produced and released a song every day for 2 weeks straight. And that was the start of the Reverend Marigold. But yeah, and it's just been me since then.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people sort of had that creative spark that happened from COVID, when you're sitting home alone, dealing with a lot of mental health things swirling around in your brain. Is that kind of what you experienced in that isolation? Or?
Well, I wasn't isolated. So as I said, I was living in a punk house where people were living in holes cut out in the walls. It was the opposite of isolation. It was like being trapped in a veritable hive of activity with a guy with 3 unfixed pit bulls and a dude named Angry Dan. And so it was more, I was sequestering myself in my room to just create the music, and it was sort of like definitely mental health, but it was that release just to get that creativity out there, to have something to do. And it was really the moment when I was like, you know what, I think I do want to pursue music and try and make this more of a bigger part of my life. Up until then, I had been trying to do engineering, and that was the moment when I was like, you know what, life's too short. Yeah. So.
Was music your first creative outlet?
Music, it's interesting actually, because music was an interesting thing in my house when I was growing up. I listened to not very much music growing up, but I sang a lot in church and around the house because my parents don't listen to music, but they sing, which is a very interesting dynamic. And so they got me playing music very young and singing very young. And so I never really considered it a creative outlet because it was just a thing that I did, like breathing and like when you're hanging out with your family. Of course, everyone's just making up songs all the time. But as I got older and I started to have to become more intentional with it, it did start to become a creative outlet instead of just something I did because it was something that I did. But it sort of like coincided with my love of, making things with my hands. And so it's hard to say whether it was my first or not, but it was definitely like one of the more formative ones for me because, yeah.
Yes, because you said you also make pottery as well.
Yes, I do. I'm a girl of many, many talents. I can make basically anything if you give me a month is sort of my tagline that I like to hype myself up with. But yeah, I currently am a ceramics technician over at the Kalamazoo Institute of Arts. I do a lot of ceramics. I've done woodworking. I worked in a glass factory. I've helped people glass blow. I ran a cold shop. Finishing like orbs, like it was just literally just an orb factory. I worked in a cabinet making manufacturing facility. I've done photography, blacksmithing, welding, like you name it. I just love making things. And that also is how I sort of do my music, is I like to be able to do a little bit of everything, which is why I do a solo project, is because then I can do the producing, I can make silly little instruments. My most recent release, Joshua Jericho, my percussion section was 2 pot lids and 1 Irish hand drum. And then I just reverbed and mixed those into whatever they sounded like. So, yeah, I like to dabble. Mm-hmm.
You could just live out in a cabin in the woods and be self-sufficient, you know?
That's the goal.
Yeah. Like, I need a bowl. I'll make one. Like, I need this. I'm not sure what you can all do with welding, but I feel like welding is like the most useful skill.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or that is incredible.
I like to keep busy, but I mean, this is to say, if you are rich, if any rich sponsors are listening to this and you want to hire me to live in your garden and be entertaining and like give me money and clay, I'll do it. I'll go anywhere.
You know, back in the day, didn't they just have what it was called, were the true hermits? They would just have a guy to live out in the garden.
Yeah, exactly. All the rich Victorians would keep someone who just lived in a hut and was like an artist debutante gross guy. And honestly, like that is sort of my dream job, is like I really just want someone to give me money and time to mess around with materials. And to make music and be wheeled out in front of guests to act strangely and make strange predictions about the future, and then go back out to my hut. And that's, I mean, if that doesn't sound like an ideal life to you, I don't know what to tell you. It just it's.
So I guess kind of going along with that, what is your goal with your project? Or where do you see it going from where it started?
Yeah, well, my project is very much like, I don't know, it was always just, I don't like have really a goal in mind for it. My main goal actually was to finish my most recent release. Like that's what I've been working towards for my entire musical career, was to get good enough in music to make what I felt like was a proper home for this one song that I wrote that was very impactful to me. But mostly what I want now, as I've gotten into it and created more things, the thing that I found most important about it is the community aspect. And so if I can be someone who travels around helping form community and like help bring people together to sing, and be a presence who can facilitate that, I think that's something which is something I would find very, very useful, and very good to do in the world. But as for like my goal of what kind of music to make, I want to make stuff that's hard to listen to, and that only weirdos will enjoy. And I hope that I succeed at that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, that's another thing. It's hard to put your music in a box, kind of. It's like, it is a little strange, almost like these, like folky, new age sea shanties. I'm not really sure how to describe them.
Yeah, they're ballads. So my grounding, I in the songs that you had me pick out, I sort of put it in order of what my influences were, just timeline wise. And my very first influences were ballads, and so almost every song that I've ever written or known was a story. There was very little like emotion songs or things. It was a very narrative driven thing, sort of creative process. Because song as a way to convey heritage and memory and emotion through showing instead of telling. And that was always sort of where it comes from. So I don't really describe it as shanties because it's not really a repetitive work song. It's their ballads. I write a lot of ballads because that's the form that I find most comforting and easiest to work in because it's a lot easier for me to tell a story than it is to tell someone like I don't know. I can't write hooks, but I can write. I thought I had something clever there, but I didn't. I just like writing stories.
Yeah, they elicit very strong emotion, and then
Mm-hmm.
they take you on a journey. It's like you're hopping on a boat, and sometimes you don't know where it's going.
I never know where it's going. Most of the time when I start writing a song, I have no idea how it's going to end. And I think that's really what I like to do. I like to try and make things happen that haven't happened before. I think that I love working in genres that feel stale and trying to show what you can do with them. Because I think that a lot of like people think folk is dead and like the ballad is dead. It's an old style, and I think there's a place for it. But you have to get weird with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody that I bring in to my show for my little rabbit hole here.
Little rabbit hole.
Yes. I have compiled a playlist of influences and things like that. So it's that time of the evening that I think we jump in.
I've got my swimming trunks on. I've got my swimming cap on. I'm ready to jump in. Let's do it. It started out actually with just me singing into a field recorder, and then moved up into me getting like one nice mic and singing into the field recorder and then putting it into Audacity and then mixing it. And now it is in the point where I have an actual like audio interface, two decent mics, and and just a lot of learned, picked up skill. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like an impressionist.
You're listening to 89.1 WIDR FM,
FM.
your source for radio evolution. And this is Wombat Music and
The Reverent Marigold.
And you just heard Lady Margaret by Pete Seeger and
A Man You Don't Meet Every Day by the Pogues.
So tell us, Marigold, why did you pick those last two lovely pieces?
Well, Wombat, there's some very, very important things about those songs. As I was mentioning before we played the songs, most of my growing up wasn't a lot of listening to music. It was a lot of singing music. The music that I could listen to and that was played was my dad had a lot of Irish music around the house. He's not Irish. There's no Irish ancestry in my family. He found one Irish album when he was in college and then went to Ireland on the basis of loving that album, and then brought back just a bunch of tapes and songbooks, and like he loved the music, and so it was always around. And so I had a bunch of Irish tapes, and then I had Pete Seeger, the Carnegie Hall concert, on CD, and it was 90 minutes of just Pete Seeger doing audience interactions, singing a bunch of sing-alongs, like a bunch of folk and ballads music. And it was like a lot of just very story-based, very like giving the importance and the context and the story and the history of the songs, and that really informs my love of connection and creating community in music. And the second song was by the Pogues. Now, listeners who know the Pogues will know that that they are an Irish punk band from the 80s. And when I was about 7, I had been listening to all of these classic Irish folk tapes by Planxty and Christy Moore, and I had learned all 12 hours straight of Irish music by heart by the High Kings and everything. And I went to my mom and I said, "Mom, I've listened to all these tapes too many times. I need new Irish music." And my mom, bless her heart, she went down to the record store, because I was 7, and she walked up to the man at the counter and she said, "I have a child who wants to learn Irish music." And the man at the store said, "Oh, well, your child will love this CD." And the thing about my mom is that she's blind. And so she couldn't tell what the CD was. And so she comes home, all smiles, and gives me a CD. And she said, "This is an Irish music CD that the man at the record store said you would love." And the title of the CD was Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash. It was Irish punk music, and I listened to that song and the Pete Seeger Carnegie Hall We Shall Overcome Civil Rights Advocacy concert, and those were my 2 CDs I listened to every night. I listened to them both the whole way through.
Early awakening right there.
Very early awakening, exactly. And so I think if there's a reason why my music is the way that it is thanks to that one record store employee at Armadillo Music who said, "You know what? This 7-year-old needs to listen to Irish punk music from the 80s. And I will be forever grateful for that. And so I've always loved that album. And I've always loved Pete Seeger too, because he's just very pure, he's very clean. And the way that he works with the audience is just very, very sweet. So that's the reason of those 2 songs. And if we were going by depth of music, this entire playlist would be Irish music, because I know more Irish folk music by heart than I know anything else in my entire life. My release earliest this year in January was every Irish song I knew, and it was 13 hours long. And that was just all the songs that I knew. That wasn't even all the ones that I had heard and could recognize. It was just 13 hours of Irish and Scottish folk music, and which ended up with me then later getting a job helping TA a summer abroad course in Scotland, where I would teach students about Scottish songs. So this is to say I'm a huge folk nerd and a huge ballad nerd, which is why all of my songs are stories, is based in that tradition of being a nerd growing up and being a nerd now. So yeah, that's why I picked those songs.
Sometimes all we need is just a man in a record store to hand us the right record, and it'll change us forever.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's when you're 7 years old.
Exactly.
And did he know how old you were?
I think my mom told him. Yeah, I think my mom said, "My young child wants to listen to Irish music," and he, as a joke, handed her the CD, and then she said yes, and so he just rang it up and sent it home with me, and I hid it from my dad. Because my dad didn't like me listening to crass music, and so I would listen to it very quiet in my room at night, listening to them sing about getting drunk and losing the loves of their lives, and serving whiskey to people, and talking about beating up Nazis and things. As the very first song has a verse about just beating the crap out of some Nazis, and so 7 years old, just listening to this over and over and over again. Love, yeah.
I can picture you with the volume really low, with your ear pressed to the speaker. Oh, hope Dad doesn't come in here.
Exactly.
He doesn't see.
Exactly. It's very strange too, because I guess that's also why I never understood why punk shows were allowed, because my introduction to punk music was very intimate and very quiet. You don't go to punk shows to get rowdy. You go to punk shows to listen to the secret knowledge that has been passed to you by the man in the record store. Yeah, obviously.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing I wanted to ask you is that, so I know you said with Pete Seeger, seeing him live, or not seeing him live, listening to his live music, it kind of, helped you think about the importance of community in music. So how have you sort of harnessed that in your own music?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I've harnessed from sort of the Pete Seeger energy is, I think, I think Pete Seeger is just, as I'm going to put on my little folk nerd hat. Pete Seeger is the liberalization of a radical music tradition that started in the early 1900s. And so I think Pete Seeger, as he stands, is maybe not the most effective protest singer, but he is a protest singer. And his whole thing was about playing music to bring people together because he came from a church tradition where people showed up and sang, which is the same tradition that I came out of. And that's the thing. I think that's actually why I took the name the Reverent Marigold, is that the thing that I love about music is singing it with people. I don't really I love music. I love it so much, and it's hard for me to like listen to it casually because of how much like I just adore it. But like the thing I want to do is sing with people. And what Pete Seeger did in all of his concerts is that he was sure to get everyone. He would play, like, if no one knew any of the songs, he would play Skip to My Lou. He would play songs that everyone knew, he would play like jingles, and like he would like find songs that like everyone knew the tunes of, and he would just give them new words. And I think, and the thing that he did is he also like gave credit and put stuff in context. And I think that's something that I really appreciate, is that he, in this concert that he did, he would start it with a history of the song that he was playing. Like what you heard in the song that he played, he talked about where his banjo came from, and then he talked about who learned the song, who he taught it from, and then he would sing the song. And he did that for every song. And I think that's really important because it connects you to where the music came from. And I think when you kind of disconnect away from because music comes from people, and when you go and you just listen to the music, it can be easy to disconnect from the fact that you also have a voice and you can sing. And I think it's makes me very sad when I go to shows and I try and get the audience to interact and people don't want to because they're nervous, because singing is we sang before we talk, we sing before we talk. And so yeah, I think I find singing and music and the process of creation of music really important, and I think I have Pete Seeger to thank for that. And I also have him to thank for the fact that I was always kind of a grungy, weird little leftist, because he was a communist and sang a bunch of union songs, which I didn't actually find out about until later. But yeah, so.
But yeah, no, that's true, because now we all just listen to music on our cell phones, and we don't really have that connection. There's the disconnect. And back in the day, everybody was kind of going to church, and so we had that built-in one day a week where we were with other human bodies, and we had song. And whether or not it's about religion, it's that's what I like about going to house shows and having my own venue, is that it's just a place it is kind of like church, because there is something that I think is kind of healing about just having a lot of people in one spot, and with music, and if there's a song everybody knows, then bringing them together. And I know we were talking about this the other night, but I think that's what makes your project and your music so special, is that I know how sometimes you do have that interaction, or you make people feel like they are a part of it, because sometimes when you go to a show, it can almost feel like you're watching the musicians through like a fishbowl, and it's like, okay, we are on the outside, but you make the audience feel like they are on the inside, and that's really special.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for you for saying that, because that's something I try and do very intentionally. And it's something which I don't know, I feel a deep, I don't know, coming from the background that I did, music was not something that like I intended to pursue as seriously as I did. And so every time I step onto a stage, I am baffled and grateful that people want to be there and see me and be with me and like share in that moment and in that space. And I think that there is a core of like there's a core of loneliness which sort of like pervades a lot of stuff in the society. We become like isolated, and we like get very everything becomes so fragmented and fractured, and it becomes very easy to like fall away. And I think back to like union, like early 20th century unions, and the point, like, it's an aesthetic now, but the reason that union songs were the way that they were is everyone was already singing those songs together. Like, all the songs were ones that everyone knew the tune of, and they just changed the words. Everyone would, like, all folk traditions just come out of, like, the songs that people would sing together. And I don't know, I don't know. I'm not trying to, like, toot my own horn or be pretentious or anything, but I think that that's something I don't see a lot of people doing, is not doing that with intention or centering it in their music. And it's something I try to do for more successfully or less successfully, because I think I think people coming together and singing is a way that we can actually, like, I don't know, it's a small thing, but it does something, and I think it's very important. Yeah, so everyone loves a house show for that reason.
Mm-hmm. So grab some friends, sing with them. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how about we play a couple more songs?
Let's get into it.
Okay. So next up is Golden Boy by the Mountain Goats and God Lifts Up the Lowly by Ezra Furman.
Now we're getting into the good stuff.
You're listening to
89.1 WIDR FM, your source for radio evolution. Evolution.
Both very lovely songs. I know you were just talking about how that Ezra Furman album was, very important for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, how has your music taste sort of changed over time, and how have your influences changed the way that your music sound is?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm sure, like you said, that the way like your sound has evolved, and it seems like your first album was maybe a little more like rough and like energetic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And now it seems a little more soft.
Yeah, in some ways, I think there's. I mean, if you go to my very first album and songs, it's basically just it's just folk music. I was just writing folk music for banjo, folk music and stuff, and then the evolution really has been, I don't know. I think I had a very, very classic experience of I went to college and learned that there are people who make things which are cool and not just people making folk music that my parents listened to. Like, it was a very like a girl goes to the big city moment. And I think that it really was like once I like, I don't know, the way that my influences have changed my music has really been like I see people who I think are doing good in the world, and I see the art that they're making, and I try and find the things out of that I resonate with and bring it into my artwork. So with the last two songs that we listened to, what I really resonate with in the Mountain Goats, I love the Mountain Goats, unabashed John Darnielle stan, love is that he just writes whatever. Like, he wrote an entire album about pro wrestlers because he was like, I love pro wrestling. I want to write an album about pro wrestling. And I was like, oh my God. And so just following that joy and that spark is something that I like tried to bring into mine. And for Ezra Furman, it was, the Reverent Marigold would not exist without Transangelic Exodus, the album that song was off of, because Ezra Furman basically was someone who I looked at and said, oh, I didn't know people could be beautiful in the way that she is. I didn't know that people could just make art like this. And it was a revelatory moment of her exploring her complexity with her faith and her difficulty. And I wanted to bring that into my work and into like the complexities of gender and faith and fear and beauty and like transience and all of these things like woven together, and each song being good, but the whole album itself is something you have to listen to front to back to get, and she saves it and then punches you in the very end. Like, she's not afraid to, like, make you listen to the whole song and then hit you with the kicker right at the end instead of trying to grab you with the hook. She lets her music stands as it is, and then moving forward from there, like, as for the actual sound itself, it's anytime I hear a new instrument or a new sound, it's like someone gave me a new paintbrush, and I just want to see what I can do with that sound. So when I first heard Wendy Carlos, the trans woman who invented the synthesizer, I immediately went and I got myself a synthesizer to like try and like play into that and like connect. It's a music as a form of connection, like playing in someone's style as a way to try and like find out what they find beautiful in the world, and then see if there's something that I can resonate with that as well. So yeah, that's sort of a rambly way of answering that, I guess. Mm-hmm.
And you said you've also made your own like instruments before, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I know you said that you did an internship in Appalachia, right?
I did a workshop. I did a craft workshop in Appalachia where I made my own mountain dulcimer. And that was not even close to the first instrument that I've built. I've built a Finnish lap harp called a kantila, which was based out of my love for Finnish mythology, and that fascinating. Go look up the Kalevala if you are interested in reading where Gandalf came from, because J.R.R. Tolkien just stole everything from that. But I also made a lot of very experimental and sculptural instruments. I made a banjo out of some horn and an old bed coal pan. So I made a banjo, and then it had a whistle, a death's head whistle attached to it. So it was something you would play drones on and like have this screaming whistle on. And then I made another one, which was a hurdy-gurdy, but it was a violin. And so it was violin fretless fingerings, and you would turn a crank, and then the wheel would play the strings, and it sounded awful. Oh my god, it was terrible. It didn't work at all. But yeah, and so I've just always loved making things and seeing what sounds I can squeeze out of, what blood can I squeeze from this stone, what blood can I turn into a tone, kind of, is sort of my goal, is that I think everything had to come from somewhere, and we haven't always had guitars, and so I think pushing music and getting very intimate with the very roots of it, of just making the instruments themselves, is something that's important to me, and I love to have that kind of granularity of control and expression at every stage of the process, from, like, I don't know, it's like growing a tomato. Like, I like to plant the seed, and I like to nurture it through, and then I like to pluck the tomato. And then I like to cook with it. It's not just going to the store and getting a tomato to cook with it, because I don't want to eat food. I want to grow the tomato. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that probably also gives you a greater appreciation for the music that you're making, too. Because, when you're able to, create the instrument that you're also, playing, and, I don't know, your music is very, colorful. It has a lot of, different sounds, with different, timbres from, strange instruments. And I think it's like, the way that you're talking about it, it seems like, ooh, if you hear a sound, or if you hear, coming from somewhere, it's like, can I harness that? Like, can I either recreate it, or, if I can't, with like a synthesizer, then you're not going to stray away from, finding some way to either make an instrument or do it, Yeah, you're not afraid. Like, you're going to grab the bull by the horn. Maybe you need a horn. Like, ooh, I see this horn. That's an instrument right there.
Exactly.
I can grab some pig skin and, like, wrap it around.
I hate how called out I am being right now. This is filthy. I make music like I make music like a raccoon would make music. If a raccoon was in a garbage can and told to make a song, I think they would make music that sounds like my music. Is that they would be like, okay, I've got a banana peel to do kind of like a if there's like a Pixar thing about, I don't know. I love making stuff out of garbage. I love making, like, I was telling you about it, like, when we were listening to some of the songs. My percussion section is 2 pot lids and an Irish bodhrán hand drum, like, and then I just distort it in the mix. So I don't know. I call it organic. Others call it challenging. A challenging sound, but I love it. I take such delight in the process, and I hope that shows through in the music itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, who needs to pay tons of money for like a nice drum kit when you can just open up the cupboard and it's like, ooh, I got a pot in there. You're walking down, that is recycling and reusing.
Sustainability, baby. I'm thinking about the planet. And I think that if you want to save the planet, start making music with what you've got around you. Pick up that pot lid. Go. Well, no, I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but one could pick up a pot lid and make weird music with it. We all do it as kids. What's the first thing you do? You grab a pot lid and a spoon and you start banging it, and we get told not to, and that's the man trying to keep us down. Make a joyful noise up unto the Lord.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is kind of the dangerous thinking about it. Is like, eventually somebody does tell us there is a right and a wrong way to do things, like, and to make art, to make music. But the way that you're approaching it is truly a creative way, because you're like, there's not a right or wrong way. Like, there's just a way.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's something that I strive for very strongly. I don't know. I think if the Reverent Marigold is not the project, like, where I am exploring what I can do in the confines of a genre, because I've never really resonated with a genre per se, unless it's Irish folk music, hence me knowing 12 to 13 hours of Irish folk music off the top of my head. And so, like, I feel like I've gotten to the depth of, I have a genre that I worked in, and now all the stuff that I make is just like, well, I don't know. I like making the stuff that I like, and anytime I try and like make it any other way besides just going for it, it always comes out. I stop having fun with it. So yeah.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, how about let's play another couple songs here.
Let's get after it. Let's do it.
Next up we have, is it Tay the Beggin'?
Oh my God! Talk about, yeah, it's Tay the Beggin', which is To the Beggin'. This is my first synthesizer influence, and it's a bad song. I'm really hoping that someone out there loves this song, whoever's listening, but I love it. It's so bad. It's Tay the Beggin' by Battlefield Band. Yeah.
Ooh, and then Man-Made Object by Lemon Demon. Ooh, switching it up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You're listening to 89.1
WIDR FM, your source for radio evolution.
And this is Wombat Music taking you through the rabbit hole with
the Reverent Marigold. Ooh.
I love those last two songs. Tay the Beggin' by Battlefield Band and Man-Made Object by Lemon Demon. So fun.
Yes, the two main synthesizer albums of our age. An album from the 1970s where they couldn't afford a bagpiper, so they got themselves a synthesizer, and then 90 straight minutes of conspiracy theories and alien stories, and then a song about the Pepsi logo. Yeah, I love both of those. I love both of those albums so much because they are so unapologetic about what they are, and just they completely own it. And I think, they just lean into the sound that they make, and they're just so like, you know what? No, I'm not going to try and compensate. I'm not going to try and hide the rough edges. I'm going to make this exactly the way that it's supposed to be. And I love that. It's music at the place that it's music at its best, in my opinion. Yeah, unrefined, except no, Neil Cicierega refined. Anyways, Lemon Demon, I can't call Lemon Demon unrefined. That's perfectly crafted every song.
Yeah, Yeah. They're just really leaning into it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that whole album kind of slaps. Spirit Phone.
Spirit Phone's so good. Yeah. Soft Fuzzy Man, actually the one on that album, which we didn't listen to, was a contender that I wanted to play on this song, but it falls into that same genre of music, like I was talking about with the Mountain Goats, of just like it's someone just made music about the exact thing that they wanted to make music about, and there was a real freedom. There's a real freedom and a looseness to it, and I just really resonated with that. Like it, I don't know. I think hearing people sing song, and I'm actually just making this connection now because my entire upbringing was you would see something and you'd sing a song about it. Like if you were like in Yellowstone and you saw a buffalo crossing the road, you go bison on the road. And it was just singing about whatever was around you. And I'm realizing now that all the music I'm picking and playing is all songs that just people saw things around them and made songs about them. And yeah, I guess that's the thing overall that I resonate with in music. I guess Lemon Demon just saw conspiracy theories and aliens everywhere and just made music about it. I think that's beautiful.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I know that you said when listening to Lemon Demon, they kind of had, what would you say, like a crunchy sound?
Crunchy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you if you're, I know you said that like it's hard to sort of pin down a genre for your music or a specific characterization for your sound. But what if I asked you if your music had a flavor?
Oh, a flavor.
Yeah, like
licorice, black
flavor?
licorice, black licorice and violets. Not even a hesitation. It is anise. It is anise seed and perfume and chemical cleaner from the kitchen. Like it is, like that is what I want my music to taste like. I don't know. Like I think I think it's kind of a cop out to say I don't have a genre because I think all the music I make kind of does fall into like a folk punk, anti folk like sort of genre because it's so ballady. But like flavor wise, that's a really good question actually. Yeah, immediate thought though was licorice, and okay, and also shout out to my favorite candy, Choward's Violets, which are like a mint. Yeah. Yeah, Wombat just got the biggest smile I've ever seen and just started pointing at me.
The square ones, they come in like a little, almost like a mint thing.
Yeah, it's a purple foil package that looks like you found it in your grandma's drawer and then you eat it and it's like someone punched you in the mouth with a bottle of perfume and it's just amazing.
Have you had the gum?
I have had the gum. It's so good.
Yeah. That's whenever I go to a candy store, that's my go-to candy that I always get.
Yeah. I've been trying to get Chowers to sponsor me for a second because every time I have some, I'm like, all right, everyone, try some of these, and I haven't responded to any of my DMs. I'm trying to slide into Chowers DMs, and they just won't have me. I'm so sad.
I feel like they're a very polarizing candy. Whenever I give them to somebody, they either give me the ick face, and they're like, oh, that's the worst thing I've ever ate. Because it literally does taste like perfume. Or they totally love it.
I hope people have the same reaction to my music as they do to Choward's Violets. I only want people listening to my music who are real weirdos, who love Choward's Violets and black licorice. Like, my music is for black licorice enjoyers only.
It kind of reminds me of Necco's.
Oh, yeah, if you like old people candy, you're gonna love my music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you feel about Necco's?
I love Necco's. I think they're just absolutely, like, yeah. I think, we're thinking that they're the crunchy, like, yeah.
They're like little discs.
Yes, the discs. I love the discs.
Like paper. Yeah. There's the pink one that I would always have my papa give to me, but then I realized later it tastes like Pepto-Bismol, and everyone was like, you like Pepto-Bismol? You're crazy. What are you talking about? I don't know. As a kid,
I think it's yeah. I love the flavor of like really nasty cough syrup. Like it's like real. Like it's like I just like I think we just it. This is a show about music, and my musical taste is that I want you to have had a weird fixation on a cleaning product you wanted to eat as a child. And if you were not there, just being like, man, this bottle of spray smells really good, and you had to like stop yourself from eating it. Like that's who I make music for.
like the Pine Sol.
Oh my god, I've wanted someone to make a cocktail that just tastes like Pine Sol with tequila in it for so long. I think it's really a shame that no one is brave enough. I people are cowardly about the things they ingest. Yeah. Anyways,
Anyway,
the Reverend Marigold, music like a Pine Sol cocktail.
All right. On that note, song to go insane to. By, Elliot Lee.
Elliot Lee, yeah.
Elliot Lee, and then
El Entierro de los Gatos, yeah. Yeah, talk about songs that are challenging. Yeah, these are great. I love them.
Yep, El Entierro de los Gatos.
By Los Psychos. This is my friend who is a welder up in British Columbia, who has like 37 monthly listeners, and like just writes songs about welding, and like works up at a scrapyard, and like all the songs are just so based out of the grief and hardness and isolation of that. Hence this song and the Goose song. I love her music so much. You're listening to 89.1 WIDR FM, your source for radio evolution.
Yeah. And we are deep at the bottom of the rabbit hole with
in the Warren with sorry.
We were in the pit.
In the pit.
Yes. With the Reverent Marigold.
Hello, and the Wombat.
Yes, and you just heard Song to Go Insane to and El Entierro
de los Gatos.
De los Gatos by Los Psychos. And yeah. That was wild.
Yeah. But. Yes, that's another song that's unapologetically what it is. I think, yeah, I don't know, we were talking about while the song was playing about how music is such a living thing, and like there's almost no music which stands the test of time, and like no one listens to the hot singles of 1850 for good reason mostly, but like there is a beauty in going back and visiting them and seeing what people were singing and playing, and like I think the living nature of music to bring people together and like to sing and scream, and the willingness of people to get weird with it, and just write their, I don't know, about the things that they're going through, whether that is about being a little creature in a garden who is needing to go insane, or someone who is singing about the death of a black cat and screaming about it. I think is both. I think the human experience is so wide and so deep and so broad. It's you have to take it where you can get it.
You gotta embrace it.
Yeah.
Just like how we were getting a little weird with it with our late minute.
I told you that in confidence. When I was working in Scotland, this takes a little context, but I was playing at a session in a pub, and there's a thing called a bothy lad, and a bothy is like a hut out in the middle of nowhere, and a bothy lad is like caught myself, is kind of a loose boy who goes out and messes around with the ladies. There's a song about, don't trust the bothy lads, and I was playing, and this man leans over and said, "But you know, lass, I was a bothy lad." And I went, "You were a bothy lad?" And he said, "Lass, I told you that in confidence. Why did you tell everyone? 90 years old, still ashamed of being a little loose with the ladies. But anyways, we were talking about how I love musical theater and how I was a musical theater kid, and we were singing Les Mis along with Los Psychos. Yeah.
Great stuff.
My shame, my deep unapologetic shame.
Yeah, Les Mis did not make the cut. But, yeah.
So sad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all you Les Mis heads, all the Jean Valjean stands. You'll have to cancel me for that.
But yeah, it's been so wonderful having you on the show tonight. I think it's about time to wrap it up here. But
yeah.
Your music is on Spotify. It's on Apple Music, right?
Yeah. Anywhere you can find streamed music. It's on Bandcamp. It's not on SoundCloud. If you can find me on SoundCloud, you can get some of the real deep cuts. Yeah, it's everywhere. I'm you can find me anywhere on any platform as the Reverent Marigold. I post about my ceramics. I do all sorts of fun stuff. Sometimes I make videos about how I'm sad. Sometimes I make videos about how I'm happy. But yeah, and
you have 3 albums out now, or is it like an EP and 2 albums?
I have several albums out. I have songs of and adjacent to leaving, which is a Bandcamp exclusive. I have goodness gracious, I have the one of the songs that I wrote during COVID. And which is on there, and I have 2 singles, Judas and God of Bones. I have Sick Trans Glorious Moon Dream. Then I have Lo-Fi But Never Low Effort, which is my Irish folk thing, and then my newest release, Joshua/Jericho, which is out now and has just been released, and is what this next song that we're going to play is off of.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have any shows planned for when you go back to California?
Yeah, well, if not as of yet, but if you are in the California Bay Area and you want to find me on a street corner screaming at the sun, well, probably pop on down to somewhere in Berkeley because I will be out and about wandering the streets. So no shows planned right now, but you will be able to find me if you follow me. Follow me, yeah. And I'll keep everyone posted wherever yeah.
Yes. And that is another thing about our wonderful Marigold here is that you said you're not originally from Kalamazoo, right? That you've moved around quite a bit. And unfortunately just played your last show in Kalamazoo a few weeks ago. I forget when it was already.
It was. Time is an illusion. The snow has fallen and wiped away the dreams of the past and my visions of the future. We all sit in the nexus of the now. I don't know. I played my last show and it was at Wombat's venue, and it was so sweet and such a lovely parting note. And I will be very sad to leave the Kalamazoo scene behind. So go and I'm gonna go forth and try and prosper. But yeah, how the house venue shows here are so special, and thank you for having me. It was so nice.
Yeah, I think it was November 15th actually.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's so close and so far away at the same time. Yeah.
But, yes, well, if you're ever back in the zoo, you're always welcome.
I'll rattle your cage.
Yes. You'll be the 3rd impact at our second impact.
Mr. President, a third banjo has hit the venue. Yeah.
It's time for our last song of the evening.
Yep.
Which is Clover Song by
the Reverent Marigold.
She's like, yeah, that's mine.
That's mine. I wrote that one.
And that's off her latest album, which is out now.
Yeah, Joshua Jericho. That is a very black licorice flavored album.
But I just had to pop in this last song here, and this is the acoustic version of Judas, because I mean this is kind of this first song that I saw you perform that caught my eye. So.
Hmm. Yeah, and we love her. We love the story. We love the uncut truth about Jesus and Judas and their relationship. So you heard it here first, folks. Well, you're about to hear it first.
Live on WIDR FM.
You're
listening
to 89.1 WIDR FM, your source for radio evolution.
And this has been Through the Rabbit Hole with the Reverent Marigold.
And the wombat.
Yes, I am the wombat. I am the wombat.
I don't. Yeah. Oh man, I love the Beagles.
Oh yeah.
Their famous song, "I Am the Wombat."
Well, good luck to you on your next chapter.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see what you do next.
I'm excited, and I'm so grateful to have been here. And it was very nice to have our paths cross like this. And to all of you out there listening in your house on this snowy evening, I hope you have a nice night.
Yeah. Stay safe out there. Also, you can find, Wombat Music is now on YouTube. So if you liked what you heard tonight, then, and if for some reason you want to hear it later, I now have a sort of podcast.
Who wouldn't want to hear it later?
Yeah. So I am on YouTube, Through the Rabbit Hole.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anywho, signing out.
Signing out. Adios.